The crimson invitation, the SS Pacific Princess carved through an ocean that shimmered like molten obsidian, its surface rippling under a sky fractured with violet streaks, as if the heavens were unraveling. The luxury liner was a gilded labyrinth, chandeliers casting spectral prisms, velvet drapes whispering in tongues no one could decipher. 5 detectives, bound by their shared history of unraveling the impossible, had been summoned by crimson invitations promising a scavenger hunt of unparalleled intrigue on the enigmatic fantasy island. They called themselves Charlie's Angels in jest, a nod to their knack for cracking cases that defied mortal logic. Thomas Magnum, his Hawaiian shirts a defiance against the ghosts of his past; Jim Rockford, a private eye whose cynicism masked a bleeding heart; Barnaby Jones, the gentle patriarch with a mind like a steel trap; and Jonathan and Jennifer Hart, their glamour a polished blade honed by years of danger. The signature of Mr. Rourke and the promise of a puzzle steeped in the supernatural drew them like moths to a cursed flame. Act 1. The hunt begins. The grand dining hall was a cathedral of excess, where Captain Steubing's smile flickered like a candle in a storm. Gopher, the purser, stumbled through the crowd, spilling champagne and muttering apologies, his eyes darting as if pursued by shadows. The scavenger hunt was unveiled with theatrical flourish, clues hidden across the ship, each tailored to the detective's past triumphs, promising revelations that pierce the veil of mortality. The air thickened, the ship's heartbeat pulsing through the floorboards. The first clue, etched into a leather-bound tome in the library, was a cipher tied to Barnaby's darkest case, a Chicago heiress poisoned by a rare toxin from abyssal seas. As Barnaby decoded it, his hands trembled, her dying scream echoing in his mind. "I should have saved her," he whispered, guilt carving deeper lines into his face. That night, a scream tore through the Lido deck. Julie McCoy, the cruise director, lay sprawled in the ballroom, her lips stained blue with the same toxin, her eyes fixed on Barnaby. The chandeliers flickered, and a cold wind carried her voice. "Why didn't you stop it?" Magnum, wrestling with ghosts from his SEAL days, felt the ship's walls breathe. "This isn't a hunt," he growled, his whiskey glass cracking in his grip. Rockford, nursing his own bourbon, snapped, "Someone's playing us for fools." Jennifer's intuition screamed, the ship was alive, its opulence a mask for something ancient and ravenous. Jonathan, her anchor, squeezed her hand, his charm a shield against the dread coiling around them. The next night, the ship hosted a masquerade ball, the passengers' masks grotesque parodies of human faces. The detectives, clad in borrowed finery, moved through the crowd, searching for the next clue. The air shimmered with unnatural heat, and the mirrors reflected figures that weren't there, shadowy silhouettes with crimson eyes. Jennifer, in a silver gown, felt a chill as a masked figure handed her a note, a riddle tied to a heart case involving a stolen artifact that unleashed a curse. As the band played a haunting waltz, the lights dimmed, and the figure vanished. Jonathan, in a black tuxedo, pulled her close, whispering, "This ship wants us to dance with our demons." The clue led to the ship's chapel, where the air was thick with incense and something fouler, a metallic tang that lingered on the tongue. Act 2, shadows of the past. The clues grew sinister, each a warped reflection of the detective's triumphs and failures. In the chapel, the second clue, scrawled in blood-red ink on a hymnal, pointed to a Magnum case, a Honolulu smuggling ring he'd dismantled, its leader garroted by a traitor. That night, Doc Bricker was found in the infirmary, a steel wire around his throat, his eyes frozen in terror. Magnum staggered back, his bravado crumbling. In his cabin, he clutched a photo of his lost SEAL team, their faces blurring as the ship's whispers grew louder. "You failed them all." He punched the mirror, blood dripping as his reflection smirked, its eyes glowing crimson. New scene, the haunted deck. Rockford ventured to the ship's lower decks, where the crew whispered of a ghost deck sealed since the ship's maiden voyage. The air grew colder as he descended, the walls slick with an unnatural sheen. A flickering lantern revealed graffiti in an unknown script, pulsing with faint light. A shadow moved, a spectral figure resembling a young woman from one of Rockford's cases, a con gone wrong that ended in her death. "You left me," she hissed, her voice echoing inside his skull. Rockford fled, his hands shaking, his cynicism cracking under the guilt he'd buried for years. The ship's creaks formed words, "You can't outrun your sins, Barnaby," desperate to shield the others, shared stories of his early cases, his voice a warm bulwark against the ship's malice. But at breakfast, as he sipped his coffee, his face contorted. He collapsed, foam at his lips, the same abyssal poison claiming him. His shadow lingered on the wall, mouthing, "Protect them." Rockford, thrust into leadership, felt the ship's gaze on him. He pored over clues, his sarcasm a frail mask for terror new seen, the oracle's warning in the ship's observatory, the Harts found a hidden clue, a crystal orb etched with symbols from their past cases. As Jennifer touched it, the orb flared, and a spectral voice spoke, a woman from a Hart case, a mystic who'd warned of a reckoning. Her image flickered, her eyes hollow. "The island calls your debts," she intoned. "One among you is not what he seems." The orb cracked, and the room filled with laughter that wasn't human. Jonathan pulled Jennifer away, his charm fraying. "This isn't just a hunt," he said. "It's a ritual." The Harts sensed the ship was a trap. Jennifer's dreams were plagued by a crimson figure rising from the sea, its voice promising vengeance. Jonathan, working the crew, coaxed a hint from Isaac, "Gopher's been talking to something, not someone." The air grew heavy with a presence that watched, waited, and hungered. Act 3, Welcome to Fantasy Island. The ship docked at Fantasy Island, a paradise of emerald jungles and alabaster beaches that pulsed with unnatural life. The air smelled of orchids and blood, the stars twisting into impossible constellations. Mr. Rourke greeted them, his white suit glowing faintly, his smile a blade of secrets. "Your fantasy is survival," he said, his voice echoing in their bones. Tattoo, trembling, whispered, "The island's awake, boss. It's angry." Rourke's gaze silenced him, but the air crackled with a power beyond his control. The next clue led into the jungle, where vines slithered like serpents, and the air hummed with whispers. The clue, a blood-stained map, was tied to a Hart case, a corporate conspiracy ending in a fiery explosion. As they navigated the dense foliage, Magnum's voice cut off mid-sentence. A scream echoed, then silence. His watch lay on a tree stump, ticking at the exact moment of the explosion from the Hart's case. The jungle whispered his name, and Jennifer saw his shadow flicker among the trees, trapped in a spectral limbo. New scene, the Temple of Echoes. The map led to a ruined temple, its walls carved with faces that seemed to watch. Inside, the air was thick with decay. A stone altar held a clue, a locket from a case where Magnum failed to save a witness. As Rockford touched it, the temple shook, and a spectral version of the witness appeared, her voice accusing, "You let me die." The detectives fled, but the jungle tightened around them, the trees whispering their failures. Jennifer clutched Jonathan, her intuition screaming that the island was alive, feeding on their guilt. New scene, the crimson tide. That night, the island's shore glowed with an unnatural tide, its waves crimson and viscous. The Harts and Rockford watched as shapes moved beneath the surface, figures from their past cases, their eyes glowing with malice. A voice echoed across the water, "Your debts are due." Rockford, his arm still bleeding from the earlier attack, muttered, "This place is rewriting us." Jonathan's charm faltered, his eyes haunted. Jennifer's hand tightened on his, her resolve the only anchor against the island's hunger. Act 4, the final clue. Back on the ship, Rockford's instinct screamed of ambush. In the captain's quarters, he pored over clues, his mind racing. The air thickened, and a figure in a crew uniform lunged, its knife glowing with spectral light. Rockford fought back, his street smarts saving him, but the blade slashed his arm, the wound burning with unnatural cold. He staggered to the Harts, pressing a crumpled note into Jonathan's hand. "The murders, there are cases," he gasped. "Someone's rewriting our souls." He collapsed, his shadow flickering as the ship claimed him. New scene, the crimson mirror. The Harts retreated to their cabin, where a full-length mirror glowed with crimson light. Their reflections warped, showing scenes from their past cases, moments of triumph tainted by loss. Jennifer's reflection spoke, "The island knows your hearts." Jonathan showed a man he'd failed to save, his voice accusing. The mirror shattered, and the shards formed a final clue, an invitation to Rourke's parlor. "It's Gopher," Jennifer said, her voice steady despite the ship's oppressive weight. "He's the key." New scene, the Phantom crew. As the Harts moved toward the parlor, the ship's corridors shifted, doors vanishing and reappearing. Crew members appeared as phantoms, faces from past cases, their eyes hollow. A spectral Julie McCoy blocked their path, her voice a hiss, "You can't escape the island's price." Jonathan's charm disarmed her, his voice soothing as he guided Jennifer past. The ship groaned, its timbers whispering, "Your mind, I." In the parlor, Rourke watched as the Harts confronted Gopher. His eyes glowed crimson, his voice a snarl. "You ruined me," he spat, channeling a disgraced tycoon from a forgotten fantasy island case, whose empire fell after the detective's investigation. Whether possessed by the tycoon's spirit or twisted by the island's magic, Gopher was a vessel for something ancient. The walls pulsed, and shadows danced. Jonathan's charm drew Gopher close, his voice smooth, "Let's end this." Jennifer, guided by visions of the crimson figure, drew a ruined revolver from her clutch. "We don't want to hurt you," she said. Gopher lunged, and she fired. The shot echoed like a scream, and Gopher fell, the crimson glow fading. The air stilled, but the island's pulse lingered. New scene, the shadows whisper. As the Harts left the parlor, a shadow followed, a spectral echo of Gopher, its voice a chorus of the dead. "The island never forgets," it whispered, dissolving into mist. Rourke appeared, his smile colder. "You've won, for now." The Harts felt the island's gaze, its hunger unslaked. Act V, curtain call. The Harts stood on the shore, the ocean swallowing the ship's silhouette. Rourke clapped, his voice a dirge, fantasy fulfilled, but at what cost? Jennifer demanded, "What are you?" He vanished, leaving only the echo of laughter. The SS Pacific Princess sailed away, its decks silent, the ocean rippling with crimson light. The Harts clung to each other, their survival a scar. Jonathan's charm was tempered by grief, Jennifer's intuition haunted by the island's touch. New scene, the printer's cowl. In a hidden chamber on the island, a printer whirred, spitting out new crimson invitations. The names glowed with an eerie light, summoning a new cast of detectives to the island's maw: Christine Cagney and Mary Beth Lacey. Cagney and Lacey, partners whose memories of a shared case, a missing girl whose body was never found, diverge, each haunted by conflicting truths. Cagney's brash exterior hides her fear that the girl's ghost follows her. Lacey's faith wavers as she dreams of the girl's voice. Mike Logan, Law and Order. A detective tormented by a cold case that never officially existed, a murder in an alley that vanished from records. His dreams are plagued by a faceless victim, whispering clues only he can hear. Remington Steele and Laura Holt. Remington Steele arriving separately, their partnership clouded by doubt. Did they ever truly work together, or is their history a fabrication of the island? Steele's charm masks his fear of being a fraud, Holt's logic frays as memories shift. Matlock, a lawyer defending a client who may never have lived. A man accused of a crime that exists only in Matlock's notes. His folksy demeanor hides a growing dread that his life's work is unraveling. Jessica Fletcher, Murder, she wrote. Now the island's curator, her sharp mind fading as memories of her cases blur. She senses the island rewriting her past, her journals filled with names she doesn't recall. Tattoo's niece, Lonnie, island-born, she knows its secrets, whispers of a crimson entity that feeds on guilt. She fears the island's future, her loyalty to Rourke warring with her instinct to flee. Guest star, Jennifer Hart, Hart to Hart returning alone, she finds Jonathan's name erased from the island's archives. Her intuition screams he's still alive, trapped in the island's depths, but the crimson figure watches her every move. The final shot lingered on the sea, where the crimson figure rose, Jessica Fletcher with her eyes glowing with eternal hunger, beckoning the new cast to their doom.